Today in this video, one of my sculptures heads off on a truly epic journey. My name's James, as one of my sculptures embarks on a trip to Toronto in Canada from here in Scotland. Find out how I do all that I can to ensure that it gets there in one piece. If you've never visited my channel before, my name's James, I'm a sculpture artist based here in Scotland, and this is what you can normally expect to see here on my channel. Some of you might remember this apple from recent videos when I picked it up from the foundry, or indeed when I made it in the first place. This is a bronze apple, 93 centimetres in diameter. The box that I put this in originally wasn't suitable for ocean freight, and the timber itself wasn't the right specification for timber that has to be imported into North America. It's got to be specially heat treated and stamped to say so, so that when it arrives they don't worry that it might be infested with insects or fungus or anything like that that could pose a threat to biosecurity. So I've had a special box made, and now I'm going to go ahead and put it in that box. I have to be really careful as well that it's really well packed and can't move around, because of course it's going to be in the high seas for a couple of weeks. So if there's any storms or anything, it could move and get damaged in the box. Right, so here we have the new box, and it says that it's heat treated and various other things. I have no idea what these letters mean, but I'm reliably told that they are needed. So I'll go ahead, put the box together, and then pack that apple up and make sure it's nice and safe. Now, I've had an idea, because this apple has had so much work done to it. You can imagine when I go to send a sculpture like this overseas and I've done all the hard work, the last thing I want to do is have an accident. Securing the bronze sculpture to a pallet is a good way of keeping it safe and secure, but the client in this case has specifically said that he'd rather I didn't do that, and the reason for that is that it's quite difficult to get a bolt from in below the pallet out on site when you don't have a forklift to pick it up. So I'm trying to avoid doing that. I'm just wondering whether to put another piece of wood, a sacrificial piece of wood, on top of this, a piece of plywood, and use some cling film just to hold it down. And then I'm going to cut a piece of wood round about it, which will keep it nice and secure. I think that might be quite a good option, so I'm just going to put it on another piece of wood, pick it up with a forklift, and then wrap it really tightly. And that should save quite a lot of heartache should it go wrong. So let's go ahead and see if that works out. Right, so I've cut this piece of wood down to the same size as the pallet so that the sides will still fit without this interfering with them. Just in case you're wondering, because it's plywood and it's man-made, it doesn't have to be stamped in the same way as virgin timber, like these pieces of wood here that form the bearers and the floor of the pallet here. I can just use wood that I've got in stock here in the workshop. Now to try and get the 350 kilogram apple onto here and pick it up with the forklift. That looks pretty good now. It's pretty close to the centre of the piece of wood, so I'm just going to get the compressor and blow off all the dust so that when it arrives in Canada it doesn't have any dust, and it's going to look just as I want it to when the client opens the box. Now for the tricky bit, I need to get the forks on the forklift between the pallet and this piece of plywood so that I can pick it up to wrap it up with cling film. Good job I had my boards this morning. Sometimes when I'm doing this kind of work, particularly myself, I wish I'd picked something a bit lighter, a lighter material to work in so that I could move things around a bit more easily. But on the other hand, I do think something with a bit more weight's got a bit more gravity, well, quite literally. And also, you know, once it's in position, it feels more permanent.
You were born to be on display, and I want to read.
Right, so hopefully that'll do it. Famous last words. Get this on, get it screwed down, get some wood in to keep it extra safe, and then get the sides of the box on and the lid, and we're good to go.
Hoping that the ripples would make you notice me, and now you're here, sunlight on the ripples, somehow you noticed me.
Now these screws that I use for putting the sides on the box are what's known as Torx screws. So they have like a special star drive in the head. A lot of people aren't a fan of these because they go to take them out and realise they don't have the correct bit, and that's quite frustrating. If your sculpture arrives at your house, the first thing you want to do is get into that box and see what it looks like. So what I do is I use these for the sides of the box and to screw the sides to each other. In the top of the box I use nails, and that way if customs want to get inside it to inspect it, then they can do so really easily. They can pull the nails out and that's not a problem. And then the client can do exactly the same. They can pull the nails out to get into the box, and then inside the box I'll leave the correct bit that corresponds to these screws, and then the client can get into the box straight away. The reason that I use these screws as opposed to Phillips or cross-headed bits is that they're much easier to take out, assuming you do have the correct bit for the job. They don't jump all over the place, and you don't run the risk of damaging the screws.
I don't believe it's all about the things that we share. Marry me when the lights go out.
Now that I've screwed the sides of the box together, it's looking really strong and rigid. There is a narrow gap round the apple between the side of the box and the edge of the sculpture. So I'm going to cut a piece of wood out which will take that gap up and stop the apple from moving around if there is really stormy seas. I'll put some foam in between the piece of wood and the sculpture so that it's not going to constantly rub against the bronze and cause any sort of marks. Now that I've cut the piece of wood out, I'm going to actually cut a circle out of the centre of the piece of wood and then slide it down over the top of the apple to stop it from moving around. As you can see, the apple's not quite sitting in the centre of the box. It's a bit tighter at this side, a bit more space here, and again a bit more space there. So I'm just going to cut the circle slightly off centre, and then that should accommodate the apple not being in the centre of the box. I would just move it, but because it's wrapped down with cling film, I've got no chance. So that's the plan. Right, so just to show you what the plan is here, I'm going to take this piece of wood and offer it into the box like this. Get a tight fit. So this will just sit in here like this, and what I'm going to do is get some foam and put it in between the piece of wood and the sculpture, and then put it back in again and have some boards going round here that I can fasten it down to, and that will make sure that it's extremely strong and safe. Right, let's get that done. Got that extremely tight now, so all I'm going to do is drive some screws in through the edge of the box, and that will mean that this can't move up the way, and therefore the apple can't move from side to side. And if the lorry should go over a bump or the ship should hit the crest of a wave, I guess, it's not going to jump up and down, so it should be nice and safe. Now that I've got the apple packed and it's nice and secure in the box, I'm going to also go ahead and pack this piece of stainless steel threaded bar. This is for securing the apple down to the ground. I'm also going to park these two driver bits. As I mentioned earlier, it'll make life a lot easier for them. And of course I also have to include the paperwork, which includes all the boring things like paperwork for shipping and customs. It tells them the size of the crate, the weight of the crate, what's in it, commodity codes, that this is a bronze apple out of an edition of 6, the size, and also a certificate of authenticity to show someone in the future that this is one of my sculptures. So that's got a picture of the apple on it taken here in the workshop. It's signed by me and it gives a brief description and edition number and things like that. So I'll go ahead and pack these things in and I'll secure them together so that they're not going to rattle around on the way there. And that's it, job's a good one. So I'll get the lid on, go ahead and phone the shipping company and let them know that it's ready for them to come and pick up.
Put your picture on my windowsill to make myself feel alright. But I knew it would not be easy spending time with you. I almost can't believe it. Believe that you're gonna.
If you enjoyed this video, then please do me a huge favour, give it a big thumbs up and let me know what you think in the comments. Just now I'm headed off on my very own epic journey to the south of England to install a sculpture that I've just finished, and I'll be back in the workshop next week creating more work, new designs, which I'll look forward to sharing with you. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're safe and well, and I'll look forward to seeing you all again soon.